Hello. Sometimes I can get frustrated when I start reading a new novel and its story and plot are so cryptic that I don't understand what's happening. I don't know what I'm reading. But then if I persist in reading it, which I don't always do, but if I keep reading it, there can be even more pleasure when suddenly it clicks and I understand and I feel with the characters and the story. And I think I've had that experience with every single novel by Ali Smith that I've read. But I've come to trust that it will eventually all come together for me. And that happened when reading her new novel, Gliff, because there's a special magic to her writing when at first the story and the situation seem totally random and the conversations that these characters are having, but then it all comes together and it has a real poignancy and relevancy to the story, which is even more so than any straightforwardly told tale. So I wanted to discuss this new novel here in this room, partly because the sofa that I'm sitting on happens to very nicely match the colors of this new novel with my gold cushions and my blue sofa. But yeah, this novel is in some senses a departure for Ali Smith because there is more of a proper plot to this story than there is in her other novels, in that we follow a couple of characters through a situation and they arrive at another place in the future from where they started out in. But in the beginning, it is quite disorientating because we follow two siblings as they are taken away from their mother who is working in a hotel, and they're taken away for their safety to this anonymous empty home, and they're given a load of cans of food and told to wait there until the mother and her partner go to retrieve them, and that is all the information that we're given. And we follow these siblings as they have conversations with each other and as they meet a horse locally, and then we gradually understand the strained circumstances that they're living under. And I'm not going to give any spoilers in this or what happens in the story, but it becomes quite gripping, but also feels like it has even more relevancy to our present, even though it is in some ways a dystopian novel, because we find that these children are living under a system which is increasingly totalitarian and reliant upon technology and language to control people. And there are some really terrifying situations and encounters that they have throughout the course of the novel and as it flashes into the future. But we primarily follow a narrator who's called Bree or Briar, and this narrator's sister, Rose, who is younger than Bree, and they have conversations that involve a lot of wordplay. And so there are a lot of the markers of Ali Smith's fiction, which makes this an Ali Smith novel, in that there's a lot of wordplay, and there's great interactions between a younger generation and a much older generation, and the special connection that can be formed in these intergenerational friendships. And there is a lot of conversation through which there are these plays upon words. And we find in this system that they're living under that words are really being used to twist and control the general population, and so it does like build upon some dystopian literature from the past in Orwell's fiction, but more directly with Aldous Huxley in Brave New World. And the actual title of Brave New World is brought into this novel, especially later on, and there are plays upon those words of Brave New World, where certain letters are taken out to give new meaning. But as always with Smith's fiction, she investigates certain words and how certain words, like the word glyph, can have many meanings to it. And by mining those different meanings, it really changes the nature of how we use language and how we connect to each other. But language can also be used as a tool to control people and to try to shut down our understanding of meaning and truth. And this is something which is explored a lot in dystopian fiction. But in a way also, this isn't really a dystopian novel, because of so many elements that are described in this book are kind of recognizable of how of things that are either happening in the present or have happened in history, or in the way that governments relate to the populations of their countries and wider populations in general. And so language by the forces in control in this novel are constantly being used to define and narrow meaning, whereas the way the siblings in this story use language, especially Rose, in a really playful and wonderful way. She's opening up words and language and showing how the many meanings of words and the language that we use to relate to each other can offer new hope and new ways of connecting with each other. And I think it's so beautiful how that's portrayed in this story. But I mainly grew to really fall for these characters in their conversations with each other, and the playful relationships that they form with each other over time, but also with an animal, because the children come across a horse in the field, and Rose feels a special connection with this horse, and they take the horse with them, and the horse becomes a companion to them. And Ali Smith is working with this both as a physical animal in itself, who becomes a character who is called Gliff in this story, but also as an archetype, as a horse, as a symbol of the individual amongst larger powers that can control and dominate it. Because there's an example given in the novel of paintings by the artist George Stubbs, who created many paintings of horses over time, especially of a sequence of a horse being attacked by a lion. And so I was inspired to go to the Tate Britain, where there are some paintings by George Stubbs, to see this myself in person. So I want to read a passage aloud from the novel, where the painting and the situation and the inspiration for this painting is being described. "He did many other pictures, all very like this one too," she said, "of a horse in a state of shock and fear when it sees a lion, and of a horse literally in the process of being attacked and mauled to death by a lion." Stubbs borrowed the idea from a very famous Roman statue of a little horse that's collapsing under a massive lion. The lion in this statue is right up over the little horse's back, biting and clawing into its side. It's meant to be an allegory for accepting your own defeat as inevitable and accepting it gracefully, though really it's an allegory for how you're meant to give in to the might of empire, Mama Roma, the lion, and so on. I saw it once. It's a very beautiful, very terrible statue, both. And somehow I read that the Romans liked to stand people next to that statue to announce to them that they were being condemned to death, to help them accept their fate, like saying, look, it happens to the best of horse. And so the image of a horse being attacked and dominated in this way comes to take on more poignancy as the novel progresses, as a symbol of the individual who is vulnerable but also has reserves of strength and hidden power to evade control through creative interactions and through forging connections with a diverse group of other people, and also how borders are such a strong symbol in this novel, just not just a symbol, something that occurs physically in the novel and which are physically created, especially early on in the book. We follow as the children are moving to this anonymous empty location to reside in temporarily. They are being followed, and red lines are being drawn around where they are, and red lines are being drawn around the community, and so these borders are being created, and she shows in this story the strength and what happens when we step across those borders which we are told we cannot cross, and this is something that is so much a part of Ali Smith's literature and this novel in general, the way that we are being confined in ways that we don't always realize, and we are told that we are defined in a certain way and that there are borders around us, but really these are all products of language, and language that is being used to control and dominate the situation. And I feel like this can be seen in so much of like our current political dialogue, and but also in historical cases from in the past, when governments become more controlling of their populations. And I think in this new world as well, about technology and how that is being used in our lives to as both a tool but also something which is controlling both our behavior and the ways that we relate to each other. And I feel like Ali Smith is dealing with this in her fiction in a way which is more relevant and powerful than in a lot of other literature that I've read, especially the way that young people use technology and how it is being incorporated into our lives. So the children have an encounter with another young individual who is using technology, and this individual like asks the children of what devices they have, and the younger sister Rose answers like, oh no, we don't have any vices. And this is the way, one of the ways that she uses language to kind of navigate these situations when she is being asked for an answer, but it's not an answer that she can give, because there are terms and rules that she is not living by, that some other children who use technology in this way take on as like this is natural. This is the only way the system can be, but it's really not. And there are different ways to navigate these situations. And I think Ali Smith has great faith in, especially in younger generations, for finding ways to navigate through situations like this. And so even though this could be labeled as a dystopian novel, I think it's a story that offers great hope in this way, and there is a lot of hope to be found in here. And so there's a quote where there's a conversation occurring, and a character replies, "Unbelievable, believable hope, I say. Impossible, possible." And so even though we can feel like we can be crushed and overwhelmed by these systems and by the news and by the changes in politics that are occurring, there are always creative and hopeful ways for navigating these situations. And that's what I take away from Ali Smith's story, and why I think even if you're initially frustrated by Ali Smith's writing, because it can all seem very random and to be not making much sense, that it will hopefully come together and have this resonance and meaning, which might not immediately be obvious. So that was my experience reading her new novel, Gliff, and it's really exciting that this is the first of two books, that she is currently writing another book, which is also called Gliff, but spelt Glyph in a different way, of Glyph rather than Glyph, and how there can be these words that sound very similar to each other, but which have very different meaning, and that within the words themselves, that there can be so many meanings. So I'm looking forward to that next novel, but I'd love to know if you have read this new book, if you are a fan of Ali Smith's fiction, or if you've never read her before, or if you're interested in reading this new book. I'd love to hear about that in the comments below, and have a chat with you about her work, and would love to about this novel in particular. But I hope you're doing well and reading good things, and I will speak to you again soon. Bye-bye.